Yes, we're turning our attention to the judiciary, a very important part of any democracy. And we've got, as you've seen in that welcoming slide, Mr. John Aikpokpo Martin, who is the first vice president of the NBA. Good morning, and thank you for joining us on the program today. Well,
good morning, Mr. Chamberlain.
Well, having listened to the AGF, President of the Court of Appeal, that several questions actually come to mind. Yeah, much as the judiciary, the last hope of the common man, but it appears as though they themselves lead a lot of hope at this point in time, because the issues that the President of the Court of Appeal raised, quite concerning to a lot of Nigerians who heard it. It's got to do with the remuneration. And if I could just reference some of the items stated there, well, she said that the CJN, for instance, as at today, takes home 279,497 naira as monthly salary, while the justices of the Supreme Court go with 206,425 naira. Then the President of the Court of Appeal herself receives 206,425 naira per month, and then the justices on the bench of the Court of Appeal go home with 166,285 naira per month. So if they're asking the judiciary to, be up and doing, how come that this is the situation at this point in time? Is it that we're glossing over this matter, or what?
Well, thank you. When I read in the news yesterday what the Honorable President of the Court of Appeal said, I was very, very shocked, because we all know that I don't think even directors receive as low as that in the civil service. And the proper body to blame is the commission that fixes salaries for judges and presidents and the governors. If they have been up at doing, I'm very sure they will have reviewed the salaries over the years. And the fact that the salary has not been reviewed since 2007, that is almost very long now, shows that there's a problem, there's a rot in that particular commission, and that in fact this particular call calls for the president to again take a look, or the National Assembly take a look at that body and overhaul it. There's something not right over that. And when we even think about it, the doctors are always on strike, asking for better salaries and remuneration. And meanwhile, a critical arm of the government, the society that caters for the rights of every other person, is they are receiving the salaries that so low that is so appalling that it's shameful to even hear. Nobody would have thought that their salaries were that low until we heard it yesterday. So the call by the President of the Court of Appeal is a right call to make at this time.
It's kind of, when you say that you were shocked, many are shocked at hearing that you were shocked, because they thought it is the members of the public that will be shocked, and they expect, those in the legal profession, that this might not be news to them, especially on the back of the recent strike, protest about financial autonomy across states. They would have thought, well, they all know this, and this is part of what that they are all advocating. But then you say that it's shocking. Does that then mean, or can you describe this as being part of the fundamental reasons why it will be difficult to stamp out corruption in the judiciary if this is not addressed?
Yes, first and foremost, we need to draw the distinction between the salaries of judges and the issue of judicial autonomy. From constitutionally, the salaries are fixed. The judiciary cannot even fix salaries for themselves. It is fixed by a constitutional body. So whether there is judicial autonomy or not, the salary will always remain constant, except and until the commission responsible to fix their salaries does that. So the issue of financial autonomy does not necessarily come in. Then on the issue of the judicial strike, as it were, yes, when the autonomy comes in, you find out that the other surrounding services, like working environment, the courts, cars, the training, and so many other things, we now work in harmony with enhanced salary when the commission is doing its job. So now the question is, if a man of that status who was practicing as a lawyer for so many years and probably was a very successful lawyer, then went to the High Court, or in the High Court is a judge of the High Court now, or a judge of the a justice of the Court of Appeal, or a justice of the Supreme Court, and is receiving that amount that even directors or even level 15 officers in the federal service are receiving more than, then there's no incentive. At that point, you put them at the peril of corruption. They are to listen to some of money, making money extrajudicially or extra-legally. So it is extremely very necessary that the members of the judiciary are cocooned from the outside influences of corruption. I will know we are in a very corrupt system or a very corrupt society where you cannot rule out the fact that they are under constant temptation. So it's a given that we expect. In fact, the NBA is now going to take up this fight because usually the bench, they don't speak for themselves. It's the bar that speaks on behalf of the bench, and having voiced it out, this has never been brought to the knowledge of the bar, to the best of my knowledge. But now having voiced it out, I think it's a crusade which we need to take up.
We're not just talking about the salaries, of the judicial officers alone. It's about the judiciary. And so when they talk about financial autonomy, it's got to do with administration of justice. And that's the holistic picture, because you can't just look at one item in isolation of the others, else it will still amount to the same thing. So that's why all of those issues are being brought to the fore.
Correct. Yeah, I agree with you. What the decision I just made was that so that tomorrow we'll not go back to the fact that, they said there's financial autonomy now in the judiciary. How come they're still complaining about the issue of salary? So they must go in tandem. They must work hand in hand to enhance justice delivery. And on the issue of judicial autonomy, I have said earlier that if you look critically at the model of the federal government, which they seem to talk so much about, they're so proud of, there's really no autonomy even at the federal level. The state government, there was I read a statement by Judicial that only about 8 states or thereabout have passed the financial autonomy bill, despite the agreement reached sometime in May. So you find out that Nigeria is just a country going around in circles. The legal system, the legal profession, the judicial system is a very critical aspect of governance. That I don't know why the other arms seem to just disregard it. But when they have problem, they now come, maybe because they think that you can at least get what they want by way of corruption or otherwise. I don't understand what is going on. But we still look forward with hope that as more as we agitate, as more as we call for this right, that we make progress. But we are making progress too slowly, and it's not good for the well-being of the nation.
Well-being of the nation, yes. In fact, well-being of the judges themselves. I saw those figures. I was shocked, as you were shocked, and I believe a lot of Nigerians were shocked. And the question that came to me was, so how have they been surviving? Because I imagine they have children, they have responsibilities. They had to go on break, right? So what happened during that break? Did they just have to stay at home, just managing the 206,000 or 279,000? What is it, basic salary or the whole package? Lots of questions were coming to mind. And I just recalled, you referenced that even directors in ministries don't earn that little. I've never heard directors complain about their salaries. I've never heard ministers say we're earning this little, or even members of the National Assembly per se. If anything, people even complain that they perhaps earn too much. So when you look at, the role of the judiciary in a democracy and the government, it's meant to be a major arm of government. It's not different levels. It's meant to be, at least from things we saw in school, it's meant to be on the same level, the executive, the judiciary, and the legislature. So seeing those figures and seeing what we've seen play out, just on strike, financial autonomy, so how much really, in the Nigerian context, is the judiciary really an arm of government?
Well, I think the greatest challenge the judiciary has is the fact that traditionally they don't speak and they don't speak out. They're not expected to speak out. They're not expected to complain. However, by the traditions of the legal profession, they are supposed to put all these things before the bar. The bar speaks on behalf of the bench. Now, like I said just now, I was surprised and I'm shocked. This is the first time I've heard that this is how much they receive, because they've never let out exactly how much they receive. If they have informed the bar, then we must be speaking on their behalf. So I want to urge the judiciary that the times are changing, and in Nigeria we live in peculiar times. Because traditionally they cannot speak does not mean that they don't have to speak. They have to speak to us. So that we now have to speak to the world and speak to government and take up the agitation. Because if they keep mute, and just imagine at that age, at that level, at that age, a man is still in this inflationary economy. Man, it's better to say that the judiciary is not a career job. It's not a job anybody will wish to go into, except the other reasons why he has to go into the judiciary. It does not enhance at all the future of any person and the future of his generation. Because like you said just now, they have children, they have houses, they need to go on vacation, they need to take care of their medical needs and so many other things that come to it. And the societal expectation that you are a justice of the Supreme Court, you are a justice of the Court of Appeal, you are a judge of the High Court. It's extremely appalling. In fact, it's a shame to the country that judges in Nigeria receive that low. And we are calling on the federal government at this stage to take up this matter as an issue of emergency. Because without happy judges, we don't have a judiciary. That's just the truth of the matter. There's no way to say. We have said it over and over again. No point to overstate it. But however, the NBA will take up this issue strongly from this point.
I mean, maybe I should just stress this a little bit. I mean, just to make the point, because we don't want to discuss this at the beginning of another legal year next year and still see the same figures. Yes, you say that. I mean, they're meant to be seen and not heard per se, and I mean, rightly so. But if I mean, you see them, and I mean, don't you notice that perhaps they're not happy? I want to imagine that if you don't know how much a man earns, at least you can tell from the kind of life the man lives. I mean, the kind of reality, the person's outlook, the person's look, and I mean, I'm sure you understand what I mean. So is that something that was never noticed, was never seen?
Yes, we couldn't have easily noticed. Let me explain why we couldn't have easily noticed. Because almost all judges have official cars, and we don't interact. They don't interact socially the way every other normal Nigerian socializes. So we see them only in official capacities. And usually, when you see them in court or you see them in valedictory court sessions, in such occasions, they are properly dressed in their ceremonial wears, which every judge has, or see them in their official car. So how will you know except they have to call out? But saying that now, thinking back now, we have had situations where some judges have been indicted for receiving gifts from senior lawyers. Now I cannot draw the connection. They find it very difficult to refuse a gift from a friend when you know very well, or when you have issues you have to sort out. So when you have issues to sort out, you want to pay rent, you want to send your children to school, and somebody you have no money, and somebody now gives you a gift of 300,000 naira. Why will not receive it? In fact, it really not in retrospect, you cannot understand why a judge can receive 200,000 naira as a gift. It's shameful. It shows that they are contrary to they are in. So the country is responsible for the type of judges we are having, or for the type of judiciary we are having, because we don't cater for their needs, we don't cater for their well-being. And that is now I'm seeing clearly some of the issues we are having. They are not tempted, and we are all human. At the end of the day, first and foremost, we are all human beings. We are all we all need to survive. We all need to take care of our family. So despite the fact that they are judges and they cannot be heard complaining, that does not mean that we have to allow them suffer. It's that particular statement made by the Honorable President of the Court of Appeal yesterday is an eye-opener to why some of the things we complain about are happening.
Yeah, and she says that that's been static for 10 years now. But, you know, talking about this matter in relation to what and how the NBA is going to proceed with this moving forward, don't you think that perhaps there should be changes? I mean, you've talked about you know, judges are supposed to be heard and not speak. The NBA didn't know, they would take it up. That speaks to the internal communication. Should something or shouldn't something change? After all, it was at that time reported in 2011 that I think it was lawyers appearing at the UK's highest court didn't have to wear the traditional wig and gown. So they made changes in different areas. So what about here? So clearly, communication are some of the things that needs to be changed here, as you highlighted. Is that right?
Well, society is dynamic. The changes must come in, but the changes must not come just because there must be changes. Those changes must be beneficial. And
This is clearly going to be beneficial, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not beneficial. And it is not what happens, everything that happens on the other side of the world that we must pick up. For us in Nigeria, constantly we are trying to evolve, but some of these things are the legal profession, as it were, it does not have a central control unit. We have the body of benchers, we have the NBA, we have the NJC, So those people, these bodies must work in synergy at this particular time for us to move forward, also for us to have be able to have changes. And if you look at most of the laws, why some people are complaining about why are no changes in the legal profession the way we need to. If you look at most of the laws, most of these laws were made during the military time and were just carried over to the democratic time. The Attorney General of the Federation is very central to so many of the things. If you don't read the laws, it's the Attorney General of the Federation who is the chairman of this, who is the chairman of that, who is the chairman of this, who is the chairman of that. So if the Attorney General himself is not up and doing on so many issues, then the progress and the changes we need in the legal profession will be very difficult to come by. And now, if you make attempt to start to change this law so that you remove some of this responsibility from the Attorney General, what you actually go to get, you are also going to have a situation of a resistance from that office, not wanting to let go some of those powers. So we really need to look at the laws of Nigeria for us to be able to move forward, because at the end of the day, the NBA is about the rule of law. We can only support and canvass what the law supports and not what we think the law should be. We might canvass and agitate for what we think the law must be, but we might not be able to actually change them without changing the laws themselves. So at this stage, as we move forward to this new legal year, we also have to go back again to the National Assembly, because the Legal Practitioner Act is before the National Assembly. There are so many other laws that are at the National Assembly. We have to look at the suggestions coming from the Nigerian Bar Association, so that some of those changes can be made institutional, can be made statutory. But without them, we can only just mouth and complain.
So I take it that you say that you expect the Attorney General to take some of these issues to the National Assembly and ensure that they're resolved once and for all.
Yes.
Okay, so let me take on another issue. We've talked about this, I mean, the finances, which is quite important, but then the reality also of people that seek justice is another thing. And I recall that a non-governmental organization, Access to Justice, recently voiced its concern about, this vacation and the fact that they look back and say just last year we had COVID-19 that hampered court activities. There was NSAS protests. Don't forget, there was Judicial strike as well. So put together, you had about 6 months of a lull. And for them, they thought having to have this 1.5, 2 months break or summer vacation, as it is called, was perhaps too much. And I don't know if you shared the same concerns. Because yesterday, we just saw a jailbreak in Kogi State. A majority of people that actually, broke out of jail were people awaiting trial. And they point to the figures across the country and thought, if we have this big emergency on our hands, is there a way around it? Can we stagger these breaks? Say, okay, some go at this time, some stay back, so we can dispense, these cases speedily?
Yes, I agree with that sentiment. But however, let me first of all go to the average. In the past 2 years in Nigeria, there have not been proper practice of law in Nigeria, because in last year we have COVID-19. As we're leaving COVID-19, we have the NSAS riot. Then NSAS protests. Then thereafter we have the Judicial strike. So we found out that we have not had a lot of time in court this past 2 years. However, I was of the same sentiment before, that why should they even go on a vacation? But I had the opportunity of interacting with some judges, and they explained that some of them have already fixed those periods for their medical vacation outside the country, and that forfeiting it will incur a lot of expenses on their side. That's one. Then secondly, that even this Judicial strike, they could not do anything, because the expectation was that the strike was going to be called off next week. So they were in a state of stagnation or whatever. So now that they have the vacation, they just need to take it and rewire and rewind themselves back to normal business. So some of the judges, some of the courts did not take 6 weeks as expected. But again, you have to find out that this vacation is statutory. It's a law that made provision for vacation at the period of vacation. The only thing that the law did not make, they left at the discretion of the courts, is how long it will take, but not more than so and so period. So some judges, some court jurisdiction decide to take the full 6 weeks, some 4 weeks and whatever. But I think they actually needed the vacation, but it couldn't have been, maybe 3 weeks would have been enough. But however, it has happened, and the federal system is already back. Some of the states will start coming back to activities from next week and the upper week. And we look forward to a more fruitful year. We hope that we will not have the type of protest we had in Nigeria last year, or COVID-19, or anything that we shut down, so that we can face the business of justice, and those people who need access to justice, we actually have access to justice. Apart from that, then the system itself will need to be rejigged to ensure that this speedy dispensation of justice is extremely very important. And we want to please appeal to the judges to at this time not allow for unnecessary adjournment of cases. They should just please try and come to court as early as possible, treat the matter, so that, because it's like we're in an emergency, we have to catch up for the past 2 years in cases. That's cases that have been lying down for the past 5 years that just in one particular stage we have not moved forward, and it's extremely necessary that we move forward as soon as possible. And this have to take personal sacrifices from the judges, from the lawyers, and from every person concerned in the justice system. And I appeal to everyone who is in the justice system to please take a step back and look at it, and that we really have to take some personal discomfort to ensure that justice dispensation in Nigeria moves speedily this next legal year that we are entering.
Okay, well, I was just going to ask you whether you also agreed with the recent intervention of the Chief Justice of Nigeria in this ex parte mess. But let me quickly take you back to the issue of welfare. We've seen a number of states intervene in what is going on, I mean, in terms of remuneration and compensation of judges. It has been received with some criticism. We saw it in Rivers in recent times, where houses were built for judges, cars were given to them. Lagos State, way before now, under the current vice president, interestingly, when he was Attorney General, there were major reforms in the judiciary, but not without some criticism. Some people think that the executive arm of government really should have no business. They should let judges determine what it is that concerns them welfare-wise, because they believe that there could be some undue interference, in the judicial process as a result of that. What are your thoughts on that?
I've said it severally that the executive have no business with the welfare of members of the judiciary. One, who build houses for the governors, who build houses for the commissioners, who build for the legislators? Nobody. So why should they come to the? Why should they look at judges as babies? In fact, when you look at the three arms of government, I don't think that on the average, the intellectual capacity or the integrity of any arm of the other two arms of government is higher than that of the judiciary. So why do they think that they can sit in their offices and decide what the judiciary should, what the handout they should do to the judiciary, then come on television to come and tell people that we build houses for the judiciary? The judiciary itself can build houses for themselves. That's what we are saying about this financial autonomy. When the financial autonomy is up and doing, and the money budgeted for the judiciary is there, they know exactly.
It's another problem. You don't think that could create another problem in the sense that the judiciary will now be involved in awarding contracts and building houses and things of this? Isn't that a distraction from what the judiciary should be doing?
No. That is a misnomer. That is not proper. See, first and foremost, we have in the judiciary, we have the Judicial Service Commission. We are the civil servants of the judiciary, just like we have the national, I think the National Assembly Commission, and we have the Civil Service Commission. Those are the person that serve. Those are the body that service the other bodies. So in the judiciary we have the Judiciary Commission, who are civil servants that will ordinarily service the judiciary. So you don't expect the chief judge to be awarding contract. No. You have the director of administration, you have the chief registrar. Those are their duties. So the duty of the CJ is just to ensure that there's prudence and there's probity. So if we have the commission, which is the civil service, and it's running on its own, why will everybody be talking about distraction? There can't be any distraction at all. In other realms where the judiciary have their autonomy, are there distractions in the United States of America, United Kingdom? Why is Nigeria will be different? Why do they think that the judiciary cannot handle themselves? Are they babies? In fact, it is extremely appalling.
So you obviously share the criticism. Let me quickly ask you about the recent intervention of the CJN into this ex parte matter order. You think that is in order?
Yes, it is in order, to the extent that I have to explain so that people don't get a wrong impression. The CJN sits on two seats. He sits as the Chief Justice of Nigeria, and he sits as the chairman of the NGC. Now, as chairman of the NJC, he has the right, because it is the NJC that deals with the discipline of judges. So he must look at the discipline of judges, whether from the High Court to the Court of Appeal to the Supreme Court. It is the NJC that deals with it. So if but the problem we have been having now, and some of us have been agitating, that the problem we have been having now is that the NJC always wait for petition to come first before they act. But now we are not in Nigeria is no longer we are not in a normal state. We are in an abnormal state. So some abnormalities need to happen to reset or reconfigure the system. Now, for the first time, I heard that the CJN had ordered that an area court in the FCT should face the disciplinary committee. He has not disciplined that judge. He has just asked the body that is necessary to do that job, please do your duty. And if such intervention comes up from time to time, I think it will be better for Nigeria. So for me, the CJN...
if you could just one more thing before we go, just as we wind down now. If you will choose one key thing that will be topmost on your list when it comes to reforms in the judiciary to, of course, improve the process, what will that be and why?
The first will be the appointment of judges, because the man that sits as a judge, there are so many things that are involved. That a judge that is made in the High Court today has the capacity to be the CJN, has the capacity to be the president of the Court of Appeal, has the capacity to be a chief judge. It is when a man who ought to sit on that seat gets on that seat that will be the necessary changes we are asking for. They will have the temerity, the courage to take it out. But when persons who ought not to be on the bench, now they are get appointed as judges, when they come to the controlling mind of those bodies, they do nothing. They just look at it and the rot continues. So we need to again look back at the appointment of judges, because those appointed today are going to go into the aims of affairs of those bodies in no distant future. And we need courageous persons, men of integrity, men of intellectual capacity to be able to move Nigeria forward. So the appointment of judges is key, always key. I keep saying it and repeating every now and then. It is key. But Nigeria will gloss over it. We never really look at it. And that's why we're having the problem we're having. Because if some judges, some of these expert orders are conflicting judges, we are saying, they will not happen when persons who ought to be on that seat are on that seat.
All right, then, Mr. John Ikpokwo-Martins, first Vice President of the NBA, thank you very much indeed for your time today.
It's my pleasure. Thank you very much.